senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. We're happy to have him on tonight. Doctor, thanks for coming on. So let me just, leaving the political questions aside, bottom line it, given what we are learning about how easy it is to spread this virus between adults and about its actual death rate, what kind of response seems scientifically justifiable now?
Yes, and that's really the key question, is how to move forward. Well, it's actually good news that the virus spreads widely and without high risk to the vast majority of people. It's in fact, half the people are totally asymptomatic. Now, why is that good news? That's good news because that means that we have a better chance of developing population immunity. Instead of total lockdown going on, which prevents that, we have a chance to have people develop their own antibodies and eventually have enough people have these antibodies to block the sort of network of progression and contagion to the people who are vulnerable. That's exactly the same reason why we give widespread vaccines, to induce this so-called herd immunity. And by the way, that's exactly the same thinking about why it might be useful to take serum from people with antibodies who've had the virus and use it as a treatment or prevention to those who are vulnerable to the virus. We don't know for sure that antibodies that are produced are effective in giving immunity, but we expect it. It's consistent with decades of virology and immunology literature, and actually it would be unexpected if that didn't happen.
So the idea that the nation needs to remain frozen in place until a vaccine is developed, assess that recommendation, if you would.
Well, I think it's not just counterproductive, as I just mentioned, it's actually harmful. It's harmful because we know, as you alluded to, massive health care that is critical has been skipped, avoided. About half of people with cancer who get chemotherapy have skipped their treatments. Roughly 80% of the brain surgery cases have been canceled. We're talking about people who have not only skipped critical care for acute stroke and acute heart attack, but in addition, all the biopsies for unsuspected and now undiscovered tumors have not occurred. We're talking thousands per week of those. And what's more so and even ironic is that people are skipping their children's vaccines. We are not only people have died and are dying, but we are creating a massive problem by not opening up healthcare with this single-minded policy of COVID-19 at all costs. And of course, the second part of it is we know how to protect the vulnerable here. It's not so simple, but we know who the vulnerable population is. And we know that as we go and let people mingle, like happened in the epicenter in New York, which is sort of, this goes back to what you said, over 20% of people in Manhattan were discovered to have antibodies. And that's a good number. It would have even been higher if we would have had more social mingling, but we know that young people, young, healthier people, I don't see the logic in keeping them isolated.
Yes.
They're a vehicle to keep the transmission going to other lower risk groups and have population immunity develop.
It seems, for some reason, it is suddenly verboten to say any of that out loud. I'm glad that you did. You obviously have an informed perspective on this. Dr. Atlas, thank you very much.